today I'm actually going to be walking you through my self-tanning routine. Lately I have been self-tanning myself like once a week. That's not really like me, but I think just because it's the summertime and the weather in Michigan has been so horrible that I don't have a really good natural tan. I kind of wanted to walk you through the steps that I do to ensure that I have a streak-free, healthy looking, natural looking, glowy tan. If you are a beginner, this video is going to be perfect for you because I'm explaining all of my tips and tricks and everything that I do. If you are not a beginner, this video will also be helpful for you. Okay, so I'm gonna get you positioned right here, and I'm actually just gonna pop a squat on the floor. I wanted to sit on the couch, but the lighting is not ideal. Okay, so now to walk you through like my self-tanning routine and everything that I do every single time before I self-tan. We're gonna start with prep. Prep, in my opinion, is so important before you self-tan, and honestly, it's like the most important thing. Well, I really try to make sure that before I self-tan, I exfoliate, I shave, I am hydrating my skin and doing all the things to make sure that my skin is nice and like ready to self-tan. If you don't do that, your tan might go on a little bit more blotchy, it might have weird patches, get streaks a little bit more easily, so I definitely recommend prepping your skin before you self-tan. So regardless of if I'm gonna self-tan, I'm always somebody that's hydrating and putting lotion on after every single time I get out of the shower. But if you aren't somebody that really lotions up your skin every single time, then I definitely recommend doing so a few days or maybe even a week before you self-tan. Like I said, it goes on so much nicer when your skin is hydrated. But then a day or two before I know I'm going to self-tan, I make sure that I'm exfoliating and I'm staying up to date with like my shaving in the shower. Exfoliating, I actually just use sugar and water. I don't know if that's weird or not. I saw it from one of like my favorite beauty bloggers on Instagram. She would talk about how she just used plain oat sugar, so then I tried it and it works like a charm. I just use sugar and water, and I use an exfoliating mint from Saint Tropez. This is not an ad, not sponsored or anything like that. I just got this mitt one time and I've been sold on it ever since, and I just exfoliate my body all over with the sugar while using that mitt. For me personally, I noticed that I can always get a little bit blotchy and like weird patches around my neck, so I always make sure that I'm exfoliating my neck really good. And then I also like to pay close attention to like the drier areas, which are your elbows, your knees, your ankles, your hands, like knuckles, feet, you know, the spots where your self-tan might stick to a little bit more than normal. I always try to make sure I'm exfoliating really good in those areas. And also, if you are gonna self-tan your face, I definitely recommend that you exfoliate your face as well. So exfoliating and shaving, I like to do like a day or two before I know I'm gonna self-tan. I find that if I do it right before I'm about to self-tan, it doesn't really work as well as I would like it to, and my tan doesn't look as nice as it would if I would have exfoliated a day before. Sometimes if I'm really running short on time, then I will exfoliate right before because I don't care that much, you know, I just want to be tan. But I really try hard to make sure that I'm doing it a couple days before. Okay, so moving on to like right before I apply the self-tan. So that is when I always like to make sure that I'm putting lotion on my dry areas. So the areas that I just mentioned, like my elbows, my ankles, my knees, my feet, I put it all over my hands because if I don't put it on my hands will come out very orange, splotchy, like unnatural looking. For some reason, they'll just be like 10 times darker than the rest of my body. So I like lather up my hands with the lotion as well as my face. You can put lotion wherever you would like. Essentially what the lotion does is act as a barrier to make sure that your self-tan isn't sticking to those areas. So the areas that you are putting the lotion on are not going to get as dark as the rest of your body, and the self-tan is not going to stick and become like super dark in that area like it would if you didn't put the lotion on. So I definitely recommend making sure you're putting it on all your dry areas and the areas that you don't want to become very dark. I typically just use a normal like Nivea lotion. You can use any type of lotion that you prefer. I like the Nivea one because it's unscented and it's very lightweight. I definitely wouldn't recommend like a thick lotion. Okay, so after prepping everything, I then go in with my self-tanner. So my all-time favorite self-tanner is Loving Tan. I've been using them for probably 2 or 3 years now. I will sometimes go back and try other brands again, but Loving Tan has been my favorite. So I use the Loving Tan 2-Hour Express Tan in the shade Dark. I really like this one just because it goes on so easily. I have never had any major issues with it. The color is very natural looking and it has more of a red undertone, which for me is very natural. That is when I'm out in the sun, the undertone that I develop. I know there are other tanning lines that have more of like a green undertone or sometimes even purple, and I know that might sound weird, but it's not. It doesn't look bad or anything. I just think that those look best on women who naturally have that undertone. So I don't know, I would kind of do some research when finding a self tanner for you. Try to find one that has the undertone that you have, because then it's going to come out looking a lot more natural than ones that don't have your undertone. I definitely say my skin tone naturally is fair to light. I still always buy the shade Dark. Whenever I buy like the Self Tanner's Classic or medium shade, I don't come out as dark as I would like to be, so I always buy their dark shade. I don't think I look scary or anything. Definitely when applying it I might, but not once the Self Tanner rinses off. So I just thought I should mention that about like the tanning product itself. Now, when I go to put it on, I always use a tanning mitt. I know there are some people that don't and just prefer to use their hands, but for me, that's just like a disaster, and my hands will probably be way more orange than I would like them to be, so I always use a mitt. I have tried various tanning mitts. I don't really think the mitt matters that much, so the one I'm using I think actually is a Loving Tan mitt, but I've used the mitt by like St. Maurice, I think it is. I've used the mitt by St. Tropez. Honestly, when I'm at Ulta, I just buy the one that's the cheapest that day, so don't get too hung up on the tanning mitt. But what I do is I just take a few pumps of it, put it right into the mitt, and then I do sweeping motions from my ankle all the way up my body to my hip. I like to start with my legs first. I don't know why, I've just always like started from there and worked my way up, ending with my face. I don't know why I do that. I don't really have a rhyme or a reason, but I just find that that's the easiest for me. So what I really like about the Loving Tan one that I'm using is it has a guide, so you're able to see where you're applying the self tan to help make sure that you're not getting any streaks or anything like that. Honestly, the process is like so easy and simple. It's very, very beginner friendly. So if you are somebody that has never self tanned before, I definitely recommend trying Loving Tan, or honestly any tanning product that has a color guard in it. That is gonna be wonders and perfect for you if you are a beginner. I did want to mention that when I self-tan areas like my elbows or my knees, I always make sure that I am bending the body part so the self-tanner doesn't stick into those creases and then I have like a really bad self-tan job because it didn't get into every little like nook and cranny. So I always make sure that I'm bending. I do that also with my knuckles. When I'm putting it on, I bend my knuckles, then I straighten my hand out and put it on again. I go through every little web of my finger. I really think that that makes a big difference, and it's going to help ensure that you aren't missing anything and you aren't going to end up with any weird tan lines. And I also wanted to mention that when I'm self-tanning like my hands or my feet or areas that I don't really necessarily want to be that dark, I never put self-tanner directly on my mitt onto my foot. I always just do the big swoop on my leg and then take the excess and rub it over my foot. Same with my hands. I do the swoop on my arm and then like whatever is left over I will put on my hand. So I never will like directly just pump it on my knit, put it on my hand and put it on, because if you do that I find there's a lot more potential for it to come out looking a little scary than if you just take the leftover and the excess. I wait to put the lotion on my face until right before I'm going to self-tan it because I really don't want my face to be blotchy or weird or anything like that. So I'm very careful with it. I don't think that you really have to do that. That's just me being nervous, but I just actually use my Neutrogena like everyday facial moisturizer just because I'm a little bit nervous about putting the Nivea one on my face. I don't know. I'm sure it would be fine. Immediately after, I will pump like the tiniest bit of self-tanner on my mitt and then rub it all in. It's very important that when you are self-tanning your face that you are like massaging it into your hairline and on your ears and like behind your ears, just because you do not want any weird lines or discoloration. I find that when I massage it into my hairline, on top of my eyelids, like all the places like that, it looks very natural and you can't even tell that it is a fake tan. So usually when I self-tan, I do it right before I go to bed, even though this is a 2-hour tan, so essentially I could do it whenever and then rinse it off 2 hours later. But I almost find that the longer it sits on you before you rinse it off, the darker your color becomes. Although it's not the most comfortable, and that is because I'm a very light sleeper, so the self-tan can kind of sometimes be a little bit sticky. I still prefer to try to sleep with it on. That way I am really maximizing my color, letting it get like as dark as possible. So after I put the self-tan on, I will just put on like loose black clothes. It doesn't stain your clothes, but I just prefer to wear black. That way I can minimize the staining if it does, and then I will go to bed. Sometimes it will leave marks on my sheets. It comes right out in the wash, and then in the morning I will wake up and rinse it off and I will be good to go. And I did want to mention just a few things about like post maintenance, I think it would be called. It is like very important that after you put your self tanner on for the days to come, that you are moisturizing and that you are like taking care of the tan. If you don't do that, it's not going to last as long and it might come off a little blotchy or uneven. So I definitely recommend that you are staying on top of your moisturizer and not letting your skin get too dry. When I do that, my tan can easily last me about a week. It makes a big difference and I definitely recommend that you do that. If you guys have any questions or anything that I missed about my self-tanning routine or loving tan in general, or any self-tanners in general, leave a comment down below. Like I said, I have tried a lot of self-tanners, like a lot. I'm not even kidding. But other than that, thank you so much for watching this video. I hope it was helpful and I will see you all in my next video.